Welcome to What Are You Reading, a podcast with the Public Library of Mount Vernon in Knox County. I'm Christy.
And I'm Katie.
And today we're joined by a special guest, circulation clerk, Savannah.
Hi.
Yay! We haven't really interviewed anybody in a little while, so we work together quite a lot.
Yes.
And as we've been talking, Savannah's a pretty prolific reader herself, so we kind of started talking back and forth, we would love to have you on the podcast. And
yeah, I've wanted to do it so long. It's been a long time coming, pretty much since I started working here, so.
Yay! Well, Savannah picked a biography, which is awesome because we really haven't done too many on the channel.
Yeah.
If you caught Lehman Kessler's interview, we did do a little bit of a biographical piece with him, which was really interesting. So I was looking forward to this one too.
Yes.
Do you want to tell everybody what you picked?
Yeah, so I picked Out of the Corner by Jennifer Gray. It's her new memoir. Very exciting.
Yes, It is. Yeah, and we were talking about how it's actually gone out quite a bit. And we were excited about that.
Yeah, I was super excited that it went out a lot. I first learned about it. I saw it in the Book Page magazine, and I was like, oh, we got to have that, I didn't know if we were getting it or not, so I circled it, and the very next day, it was like fate, I come into work, and it's sitting on the new cart, so I was like, oh, that's mine right now. So it was great. So
that's awesome. So we had talked a little bit off camera because I always like to read up a little bit on, whenever we have a guest on their pick for the book.
Right.
And we always think of Dirty Dancing right off the bat.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I totally spaced that she was Ferris Bueller's sister in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, me too, especially because, I'm kind of a youngin', so
yes.
I didn't even make that connection until I read this book, and I was like, oh, how did I never know that,
Yeah.
So it was definitely Dirty Dancing. I read a lot of reviews, and that was one of my favorite reviews that I read was some lady had said, we came for the dirty dancing. We stayed for the funny stories and basically, her brutal honesty on basically everything she talks about in this book.
Wow.
So that was my favorite review that I read.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's definitely true. Everybody's like, oh, Jennifer Gray, it's Dirty Dancing right off the bat.
Yeah.
So, but there's so much more to it. Dirty Dancing is honestly such a small part of this book. I was surprised at how there's not as much as you might think,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's great because
me too.
There's so much written about Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey and how they didn't like each other and all this stuff, which you can't write a autobiography with their biography without mentioning that.
Yeah.
But I like that that's not the focus.
Yeah, it really isn't. There's so much more to it. It's really kind of a coming of age story about coming into her womanhood and how, Dirty Dancing helped shape her as a person, but how the real change came after that when she wasn't getting work, when she got this, the nose job situation that went completely wrong and just so much. There's so much more to it than just Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, I remember when that was a controversial thing, her having plastic surgery.
Right.
Even aside from the fact that a few people, noticed a very definite physical change in her.
Right.
But even the idea of getting plastic surgery in the media back then wasn't, a very popular thing to do.
No, definitely. That's, the nose job is a very big part of the book. Because it's, she tells you how basically this insecurity started as a child. That, obviously her family was Jewish, and her parents told her from basically childhood, oh, everyone does it, that the Jewish look is not a popular thing. We both had nose jobs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, both of her parents had nose jobs, and they strongly encouraged her, oh, just do it. It's the thing to do, and you'll be more beautiful, and people will love you. You'll get work. Which she didn't do for a very long time. It was after Dirty Dancing. And then, all was well, everything was fine. And then that's when she had a medical issue come up within the work she had already had done, and she went back in to have that fixed in the middle of shooting a movie, which I was like,
wow,
that is crazy in the first place. Like, that is a huge risk. And, you know, everything went wrong. And she said this movie was like highly anticipated. People were excited. It was supposed to be a huge hit, and it flopped because of the nose job. Wow. So that was, you know, it's really just hard to even fathom having that kind of pressure put on you from literal childhood of like, oh, just get your nose done, you know, basically being told like you're not good enough your whole life. It's sad, really.
Oh yeah,
it is.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Did she have to seek therapy, or did she really talk about how she handled the fallout of all of that?
I don't believe that she sought therapy, but it does say that there was a time when she did, what is it? Johnny Carson. There we go. She did the Johnny Carson show, and it is so cringy reading it, you know, and she's like, you know, the whole time she's like panicking, like she knows that she is just dying up here on this stage. And she's trying to, you know, savor the moment and like fix this situation. And it just didn't happen. And she was like, that was like a huge turning point. And I believe it was her talent agent, possibly, who had asked her, like, have you been drinking? You know, whatever. So this kind of led to her addressing her other issues, such as one thing she talks about a lot in the book is, you know, her seeking male attention is, you know, and I think that that's something that a lot of women can definitely relate to, is that urge to want to be wanted and want to be feeling like, you know, people are finding you attractive and talented. And also that she had never really looked at it as she had a drinking problem or she had a dependency issue. So she starts going to AA meetings, you know, and then she's like, at AA, they told me if your life gets better when you stop drinking, like maybe you should hang around. So that was kind of the therapy portion of that, I guess, is that's when she started dealing with her issues and coming into her own, that, you know, she doesn't need a man to say, oh, Jennifer, you're great, or she doesn't need, you know, alcohol to be herself. But also after that point, she didn't work for a long time. So she said, you know, with the thought of doing an on-screen appearance would just like make her physically ill and panicky. And so she was kind of out of the spotlight for a long time, just doing really small pieces, if anything at all. So
did she talk about what she did during that time, like when she was away from Hollywood?
I will say that that's one thing that I didn't love about the book, is that I feel like it really majorly skips like a decade, you know, like kind of a lot of the 90s are just like it's Dirty Dancing, no work, the nose job, and then we're like, and then I met, you know, the man who became my husband and the father of her child. And then it's kind of like we're skipping, she was a stay-at-home mom. So, you know, there's not a whole lot about that. There's a little bit of kind of what their routines. And then she did Dancing with the Stars, which I loved. Like, my mom and I watched Dancing with the Stars my whole childhood. Totally a fan. That's awesome. And she danced with Derek Huff, who is my man. Derek Huff is great. So, and they won. And it was actually, awesome. That was like a really inspiring part of her story, is that I didn't even know, because as I said, you know, most of this stuff happened before I was even born. I didn't realize that this accident that Matthew Broderick had been in, she was in as well. And she got a neck injury in that. But she got whiplash. And just thought, okay, you know, that's it. She had some soreness in her neck and weird things over the years. But she goes to do Dancing with the Stars. And they said, oh, you know, we want you to get checked out, make sure that you're safe, you're healthy enough, you're in good shape to do the show. And she goes to see this doctor, and he's like, oh, absolutely not. Like, you need neck surgery now. That basically this had caused really severe damage to where basically her skull was detaching from her neck and her spinal cord.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so this is like major crazy stuff, and I was like, this is unbelievable that she had this surgery and weeks later went on Dancing with the Stars. I'm like, I just would never. That's incredible to me that she went through all of this pain to kind of make a comeback, because at first she said, you know, I didn't even want to do it. I felt like that was, and she was like, you know, no offense, I mean nothing by this. I didn't even watch the show. Just she said at the time it felt like they were saying like, this is it for you. Your career is over.
Yeah.
And then it turned into, you know, you can do this. You can show people that you can still dance and make, you know, this kind of small comeback and get some respect, which she did. You know, I went back and watched all of the Dancing with the Stars dances on YouTube, and I just like, I loved it. You know, she has a watermelon at one point.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yes, they they did a Dirty Dancing dance.
That's
of course.
really cool.
So that was great.
Well, yeah, and after you've read that, you can go back and, like you said, you rewatch them. You have a whole new respect for what she did.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was incredible to watch because she did dance so well. And, you know, if anybody does watch Dancing with the Stars, like, you know, it cannot be easy.
No, that is
incredibly hard
stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there was that. And that's another thing that I learned from this book is I wasn't aware of how much of a theater and dance background she had. I didn't know who her father was. He was Joel Grey, if anybody else didn't know that. Mm-hmm. So she was like hanging out at Broadway shows for most of her childhood. And that was, you know, something really cool that I thought. I kind of thought that she just came out of nowhere and started this acting career. Which, that was another thing that I loved too, because as you mentioned earlier, Katie, kind of the conflict between her and Patrick Swayze, like, you know, everybody came for that. But it was, that was a really cool part to read though, because then I'm like, oh, I want to know more, you know, I want to know what Patrick Swayze said. So then I go and read his book, which then, you know, I learned so much from that. But Patrick Swayze was an incredible person. Yeah. And then I read more about the dance industry because of a book that he mentioned by Gelsey Kirkland. So really this just, you know, it totally spiraled. I watched so many videos. I watched Dirty Dancing again. I cried like 5 times. I don't know why. It was an inspiring story. Yeah, you know, you read about what it took for her to get to that point and how nervous she was that this is her first starring role. Just crazy.
It's a big deal.
Yes.
Well, and that's the whole point. That's why we do this podcast. That's why we like to talk to our patrons when they come into the library, right? Yeah. What happened to you? Like, you picked this up and look at what it led you to. All of these other books and a new interest that you might not have realized you had.
Yeah, I mean, I spent hours, you know, reading articles and looking stuff up, watching YouTube, watching different movies. I watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I watched Red Dawn, like all because of this book. So I really truly enjoyed it. And I thought it was a great book. Some people, you know, a lot of the reviews were not so complimentary. They thought she talked too much about her nose job. But I think that that's a huge part of her story is overcoming that. So I didn't think it was too much at all. I think she's trying to show you that, like, I had this privileged life and everybody's like, oh, you know, this is great. What are you even whining about with this nose job? And she's like, but it changed everything. And that really affected her self-esteem coming up in the industry. She was very self-conscious. She was very, you know, she had stage fright. Terribly, even going through. Her first live performance she was a backup for someone else on Broadway. And she's like, you know, and I never thought my day was going to come, you know, who's going to miss out on their starring role? And and she's like, you know, I felt like I was going to throw up. And I'm like, I can't even imagine.
No.
So
well, that's so amazing, right? And I really hope that, and I think you've been an awesome salesman for this book. Because,
thank you.
Yeah, it definitely makes us want to pick it up. And I hope that it makes you guys want to pick it up. And
yes, me too.
It is available here at the Public Library of Mount Vernon, Knox County. Any of our branches, just swing in. we could put you on hold for it.
Yep, I'll give it back now.
Short turn it, we promise.
Yeah, and Savannah mentioned the book page magazine.
Yeah.
We get them. We get oodles of them every month with like the new titles that are coming out.
No, that's where I find half of my stuff.
I use it to find a lot of my TBR list.
Mm-hmm.
So come pick one of those up and talk to us about Dirty Dancing.
Right? They're absolutely free. And just pick one up and then you can kind of get a leg up on what's coming, to the shelves soon. So thank you so much, Savannah, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I loved it.
Of course. We loved having you. We'll probably have her back. So all right. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye.